U.S. Consulate hosts closing ceremony of AFCP Wood Conservation Project.
I am excited to be here this afternoon to celebrate the opening workshop of this important U.S. Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation Project with Nigerian professional conservators. I especially welcome the project team, which is made up of Nigerian and U.S.-based experts. The U.S. mission in Nigeria has demonstrated great commitment in its efforts to preserve Nigerian culture through the Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation, or what we call the AFCP. And it has funded projects with over $1 million across Nigeria over the last 5 years. And in fact, we do this, we have an Ambassador's Cultural Preservation Fund for all countries in the world, and we do similar projects everywhere. All countries of Africa, throughout South America, in Europe, and Asia as well. So it is a wonderful tool we have in our diplomatic toolkit for advancing collaboration and cooperation between the U.S. government and foreign governments, and especially here in Nigeria.
The U.S. Consulate in Nigeria on Friday, May 5th, 2023 hosted the closing ceremony of its Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation AFCP project at the National Museum, Onikon, Lagos. The AFCP project seeks to train Nigerian museum professionals selected from across the country in the restoration and conservation of wood and leather materials, documentation and storage. It is expected that the beneficiaries of the training program will return to their various stations with the requisite skills to preserve the artifacts stored in their museums. Dignitaries at the closing ceremony included the Director General of the National Commission for the Museum and Monument, Professor Abayi Satijani, Public Affairs Officer of the U.S. Consulate in Lagos, Joseph Kruzich, the General Manager and CEO of the National Theatre, Professor Sunday Ododo, and Tayo Adeboye, Director of Educational Services and Curator, National Museum, Lagos. Here are the highlights.
We are taught how to, the best way of preserving our wood objects, even the leather objects. So we are given the recent methods and process of preserving them. So it will be a very good thing when we get back to our stations. At least we have to train other people too.
We said 70% of the holdings of the collections in National Museum Lagos they are in wooden media, and because if we don't keep this object in top form, they are exposed to degradation and deterioration. So the first consideration when we have opportunity for preservation and conservation are those wooden materials, and that is why this collaboration is essentially geared towards the preservation of those wooden objects.
Yes, it's the closing ceremony of a workshop on wood conservation and preservation. And as we know today, in the National Museums of Nigeria, there are many objects of cultural value. And 70% of these objects are in wooden form. And preserving these objects is also to preserve our cultural heritage. Because these objects tell a story. They represent part of our history. So it becomes essential to conserve and preserve them so that critical aspect of our history is also not lost. So this training is apposite to have people with requisite knowledge in preserving our wooden objects that are repository of our cultural heritage and information.
So this is an event that has been in the making since 2018. It was a workshop dedicated to wood conservation at the National Museum in Lagos. And we've been working with conservators from across Nigeria, so from 8 different museums across Nigeria, who came to Lagos to gain training in wood and leather conservation.
Well, I'm here today to, be part of this success story that we have started a long time ago.
a success of collaboration between the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria and institutions in the United States of America. And in this case, we are partnering with the Yale University Art Gallery on areas of wood conservation to train our staff at the national museums across the country, from selected museums, to learn on how to restore and conserve wood and leather materials, so that they will be able to go to their various stations and apply the skills in preserving our objects in the museum, but also to train their other colleagues on how to do this conservation work as well. Well, I want to appreciate really all the participants that are in this workshop, the staff of the Yale University and other institutions in the U.S. that came here to train our staff, but also the U.S. Embassy for supporting this effort, and also my colleague from the National Theatre, Professor Sunday Ododo, the General Manager and Chief Executive, for being part of this, and the staff of the National Museum, the media, and everyone for coming to grace this occasion. It's been a great, really, moment for us.
Oh, this event was about us inaugurating a project that's been long in the making between the U.S. government, the University of Yale, which is one of America's finest universities, and then also the National Museum of Nigeria here in Lagos. And it's about preserving the wooden artifacts of the Yoruba cultures and traditions. And it's we've had one exchange already. This is the second exchange where we bring over conservators from Yale University who are expert at their museum that they have on African art, at preserving and conserving wooden objects of art. And so they've been doing a workshop this week with their Nigerian counterparts to train and to provide their expertise on this. There'll be, in the future, there'll be other projects. We heard from one today who went to Yale. There'll be other times when they go to Yale, and then Yale will come back here in October. So it's a project that goes back and forth, that shares best practices and shares expertise, and it's a great way for us to preserve Nigerian artifacts, Nigerian culture, especially Yoruba culture, and also show our deep respect for Nigerian culture.